In the year 1870, a 31-year-old man named John D. Rockefeller controlled a mere 4% of America's oil refining capacity. Yet within a single decade, he had seized a staggering 90% of the entire market. Rockefeller did not just build a company, he engineered the architectural blueprint of modern corporate control, creating a system of vertical integration and horizontal consolidation that every dominant corporation from Amazon to Google uses to this very day. To understand the man, you have to understand the strange, polarized environment that raised him. His father, William Rockefeller, was a notorious traveling con man who went by the name Devil Bill, a man who once boasted that he cheated his sons every chance he got to make them sharp. His mother, Eliza, was a devout and austere Baptist who taught John that every penny must be accounted for and that waste was a sin against God. This combination gave Rockefeller a unique psychological edge. The cold, calculating ruthlessness of a predator mixed with the unwavering moral certainty of a religious zealot. While thousands of prospectors were out in the mud of Pennsylvania gambling their lives on the volatile drilling side of the business, Rockefeller realized that the true power lay not in finding the oil, but in refining it and controlling the logistics of how it moved. He realized early on that the oil industry was a chaotic boom-and-bust nightmare that needed to be tamed, and he saw himself as the only man capable of bringing order to that chaos. He didn't just want to compete, he wanted to eliminate the very concept of competition, which he famously described as a sin. His first major move was the creation of Standard Oil, but it was his secret deal with the railroad titans that changed the game forever. Rockefeller struck a bargain with the rail lines that allowed him to ship his oil at a fraction of the cost his competitors paid. But the real genius was the drawback system. Not only did Rockefeller get a discount on his own shipping, but the railroads actually paid him a percentage of the full price shipping fees they collected from his rivals. It was a rigged game from the start. This allowed Standard Oil to lower its kerosene prices so drastically that it could launch localized price wars, dropping prices below the cost of production until local competitors were forced to either sell their businesses to him or face total bankruptcy. During the infamous 1872 Cleveland massacre, Rockefeller absorbed 25 of his 26 local competitors in just 3 months, perfecting a buy or destroy model that still defines corporate expansion 150 years later. He was a master of the squeeze, a tactic where he would buy up all the barrel makers, all the warehouses, and all the pipelines in a region until his competitors literally had no way to get their product to market. As Standard Oil grew into a global behemoth, Rockefeller faced 2 major threats: growing public hatred and new aggressive antitrust laws designed to break up monopolies. To bypass these hurdles, he invented the trust, a legal shell game where a parent company controlled dozens of subsidiaries while technically following state laws. It was the birth of the modern holding company. By 1913, Rockefeller's net worth was the equivalent of $400 billion in today's currency, making him significantly richer than Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates combined. When the United States Supreme Court finally ordered the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911, the public cheered, believing the monster had been slain. But the joke was on the American public, because Rockefeller still owned massive shares in all 34 of the new spin-off companies. As these new entities, which would eventually become Exxon, Mobil, Amoco, and Chevron, grew along with the rising demand for gasoline and automobiles, Rockefeller's personal wealth actually tripled. The breakup didn't destroy his power, it just diversified it. This proved a fundamental truth of his system. Once a monopoly reaches a certain scale, it becomes more powerful than the laws designed to stop it. As he grew older, Rockefeller pivoted his focus toward regulatory capture and massive-scale philanthropy. He founded the Rockefeller Foundation not just out of the goodness of his heart, but as a strategic tool to avoid the newly implemented income tax and to shape the future of American society. One of his most significant legacies was his overhaul of American medicine. By funding medical schools that emphasized a pharmaceutical-heavy, chemical-based model and delegitimizing natural or traditional remedies, Rockefeller ensured that the entire healthcare system would eventually rely on products derived from, you guessed it, petroleum and chemical manufacturing. He turned the world of medicine into just another branch of his industrial empire. Today, you cannot escape the Rockefeller legacy because the system is not Standard Oil, it is the method of total market dominance. Whether you're using Google's 92% search monopoly, shopping on Amazon's vertically integrated platform, or banking with massive holding companies like JP Morgan, you are living inside the world that Rockefeller designed. He believed that the natural end state of a free market was not competition, but a handful of dominant players who control the supply, capture the regulators, and use philanthropy to buy social legitimacy. His life's work was to replace the wasteful competition of the many with the efficient control of the few. We see this today in the big tech era, where a few companies control the flow of all information and commerce, often with the quiet blessing of the government. Rockefeller understood that if you control the infrastructure, you control the people. He lived to be 98 years old, long enough to see his name go from being the most hated in America to one associated with libraries, hospitals, and universities. He realized that the ultimate business move was to own the narrative of your own life. Even today, the Rockefeller name is synonymous with the very concept of old money and global influence. His descendants continued to occupy positions of immense power, from the vice presidency of the United States to the heads of the world's largest banks and international organizations. The Rockefeller system teaches us that true power is invisible. It doesn't look like a greedy man in a top hat anymore. It looks like the terms and conditions you click accept on every day. It looks like the massive index funds that own shares in every competing airline, every competing bank, and every competing food brand, ensuring that no matter which one you choose, the same small group of people at the top still gets paid. The sin of competition has been successfully eradicated in almost every major sector of the global economy. As we move into the era of artificial intelligence and digital currencies, the same Rockefeller tactics of early land grabs, aggressive scaling, and regulatory capture are being deployed once again. The dominoes are still falling exactly where he predicted they would. You can choose to resist the system by supporting small-scale, decentralized businesses, or you can join it by investing in the very monopolies that extract the world's wealth. But you can never truly leave the Rockefeller architecture because it has become the very fabric of our modern existence. He built a world where order is bought at the price of freedom, and wealth is concentrated by design. As we stand at the precipice of a new industrial revolution, the shadow of John D. Rockefeller has never been longer. The question is no longer whether we are living in a monopoly. The question is whether we even have the will to recognize the walls of the maze he built for us. In the end, Rockefeller won not by building the biggest company, but by building the only game in town. The experiment he started in the oil fields of Pennsylvania has now scaled to the entire planet. And as the money supply expands and the middle class thins, the wealth continues to flow upward, just as the master architect intended. History is a cycle, and we are currently circling back to the era of the Gilded Age. Only this time, the oil is data, the railroads are the internet, and the new Rockefellers are already sitting in the security booth watching us through the monitors of level B2. The patterns of history do not lie, and the math of the Rockefeller system does not negotiate. Welcome to the machine.